Ashlyn.
And I'm Zach.
We're traveling A to Z.
This week we're in Alaska.
Our next stop on our Norwegian cruise through Alaska is to Ketchikan. So we made it to Ketchikan. Now we're gonna go on a hovercraft tour. So Ketchikan Terminal is a new port that was built pretty recently, and it's about a 20-minute drive to the actual downtown Ketchikan. It's about 7 miles. We're going on a tour, so we're just meeting at the end of this little terminal thing. That's our boat. And that one next to it is still a really big cruise ship. That is how big our cruise ship is. It's huge. It's like 20 stories tall. We can only go to like the 17th or 18th story, I think. That's where the racetrack is. And then if you're special, have the Haven, like they have extra floors. When you get to the end of the pier, they have a big warehouse that has a whole bunch of shopping and also a place that you can get the downtown shuttle and where you depart for your tours. And this is where we met. After we found our tour guide, we followed them down to some of the vans into the city. Our next stop on the cruise ship is Ketchikan, and we're gonna go on a hovercraft boat ride. So Ketchikan is the 4th largest city. Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau are the cities that are bigger than Ketchikan. They have about 17,000 people that live here, and about 4,000 of those are snowbirds, so they'll leave for the winter. The winter here, it's cold. It gets down to around 30s, but the crazy thing is it doesn't really snow here because it's right on the ocean, so it's actually warmer than a lot of places in the East Coast, which I thought was interesting because we're in Alaska. I thought it would snow, but it doesn't really snow that much here. This tunnel behind me is a really cool tunnel because it's one of the only tunnels you could go through. You could go over, you could go around, or you could go under. So during low tide, you could actually kayak underneath this area because it's on stilts, and it's the cliff is basically on the other side of where the tunnel is. So pretty neat. So half the town is on stilts that we're walking on, at least the tourist areas. We learned that for every bar, you have to have a church or a religious thing built also. So like if you have 30 bars, you have to have 30 churches. It's pretty crazy. We also have a ton of jewelry stores everywhere in Alaska. Welcome to Ketchikan! We made it! Alaska's first city is in Ketchikan. I didn't know that, but that's what their sign says. We're now heading to the dock to go find our hovercraft to go on a tour. That's so cool. We're going on a hovercraft. Hopefully it doesn't pop and we sink. I don't know. This is an amphibious craft that lifts up and floats on a cushion of air. It is called an air cushion vehicle. So this craft is not specific for water, but it does well on water. It also is used on ice. On each side of the craft, they have lift fans that actually blows air straight down that allows the craft to be lifted. There's a skirt all the way around the craft that captures the air. The skirt, when we're not moving, goes 5 feet deep into the water. When the skirt is filled with air, the hovercraft comes about 24 inches above the water. When it comes out of the water, you don't really notice it much because as we lift up out of the water, we displace the same amount of water as equal to the craft. So we make a big bubble underneath us until we really get going and pick up speed. You're now starting to hear the fan starting to engage, and we're actually starting to lift out of the water. Now we're letting the bottom of the skirt drain off, so then we can take off. Like we're taking off in moving, it is so smooth. You can't feel any waves whatsoever. You could also go over debris and logs and not even feel it. In 1959, this type of vehicle was first used in the Vietnam War. The hovercrafts were very convenient going over the rice fields. The Navy still uses these vehicles today. So we just drifted onto a black sand beach. So we just went onto a black sand beach from the water, and it was so smooth you couldn't even tell when you went from water to the ground. It was pretty neat. So this hovercraft will go up to 60 miles per hour. We typically only go, I guess, 20 to 30 because of regulations and laws. And it's so smooth, you can't even feel like going over waves or anything. And it's neat because it could go from land to water and back and forth. And I guess they use it in the military still. But this is like one of the only hovercrafts available for rides in the United States that they could think of. So these are lift bands that allow it to fill up, and this little black thing fills up, and then they have little areas underneath that are separate, so if one area pops you could still float. And it's pretty neat. It looks like little centipede kind of legs, so lots of different little areas that blow up with air. We're now heading back to Ketchikan, and you can see how seamless it was going from land to water. On our way back to Ketchikan, we stopped by an area where there's an eagle's nest and there's some babies, and we got to see eagle get a fish right in front of us. And just in case you missed it, here it is in slow motion. So on the cruise, unfortunately, you only get about a 4-hour stay. We docked at 7, we have to be back 12:45, but there's buses that take like 20 minutes to get back to the boat, and so it's actually, the last bus is like at 11 or 11:30. Ketchikan was a lot of fun, but now it's time to head back to the cruise. I hope you enjoyed our videos as we took an Alaska cruise on Norwegian Cruise Lines. Please subscribe below to follow more of our adventures.